Hey everybody, Paint Marine here with another video focused on the kill team. This is going to be on the article they just released on the ranged combat. I'm pretty excited about this one. There's a lot of good stuff in there. I'm really liking. I'm really getting stoked again for kill team. Like I said, I played way back when the first rules came out. It was like 2012, 2013, when they just released rules, and that's all it was. Then they had that pseudo box set that came out in 2016 that just kind of took those rules also and put them into a box set with a sprue. I think it had the new Tau Fire Warriors were in there. And then they came out with a whole new kill team, and it was great. But then my Steam really kind of fell off in 2019 when they did the re-release and they started releasing commanders and elites and all that. And they just kind of, again, just got too many books, too much just bookkeeping in general. And I just was like, I'm good. So I kind of stepped back a little bit. I came back a little bit into it at the end of 2019. I went to Nova and I just did a couple kill team events there, along with the bigger 40K narrative stuff. And it was fun. I liked getting back into it, but again, like I said, I didn't dive into it a ton, and I could have probably done better there had I continued to play and keep up with the meta. But like I said, it just got to be I don't know, a little bit too bloated for me, even though it wasn't as bloated necessarily as what actual normal 40K gets. So but yeah, I am liking what I've seen so far. A lot of it is reminding me of Star Wars Legion, which is something I've played before as well. I mentioned in my last video, I used to have a huge clone army, but kind of downsizing everything and trying to focus on just my main 40K army, because like I said, I have enough things that aren't painted. So I unfortunately got rid of my clone army just to kind of reduce down. So but in general, I'm getting very excited for kill team. I'm liking what I've seen so far. I don't think there's too many things that are to worry about right now. I know a lot of people are freaking out about the kind of movement controversy with the shapes and stuff like that, but we don't really know how that's fully going to come into play yet. I kind of see where they're coming from with it, but we need to see more really, because with the stat they've shown, the 3 circle is the movement. So in everyone's mind, that's just movement with extra, or that's just 6 inches with extra steps. But I think the fact is it's saying that you have 3 instances that you could move the white circle, which is 2 inches, meaning that you may have to spend an action point to move 2 inches each time, and you can do it up to 3 times if you have 3 action points to use to move that full 6 inches. Otherwise, you can only use 1 action point to move 2, or none, and stand still. But anyway, let's jump into the ranged article, because I'm pretty excited about this. I think there's some good stuff in here too. But yeah, let's jump into it. It took a second for it to share. All right, so las guns can kill from across the board in the new kill team's deadly firefights. So yes, that's exactly what it means. There is no range limits to ranged weapons unless it otherwise states. Now we'll see here in a second that basically, unless it's basically like a pistol or something that would just in general have a lot lower range, it's going to have a range limit. But everything else, all your normal las guns or longer ranged weapons in general, have unlimited range. So everything can hit it. So pretty much, unless you have somebody that's just fitted out with close combat, like melee weapons or pistols, everyone's primary weapon should be able to reach anywhere on the board. Well, will be able to reach anywhere on the board, not taking into account for obstacles and terrain and stuff like that, of course. But anyway, so we're back with another article. You may have caught a glimpse of some weapon rules when we looked at the revamped data cards yesterday and noticed that they're rather different from what you're used to. Range combat has been reworked to better suit the chaotic close range battles your kill teams will be fighting in the new edition. Whether your operatives are firing careful shots with lasgun or unleashing torrents of burning promethium from a flamer, there's a lot both in the kill team's brutal cinematic trailer. All right, so here we go. You have the las gun. So attacks 4, meaning they're getting 4 shots. Ballistic skill, weapon skill 4+. And then you have your damage 2, 3. SR, which is normally your range. They don't really say what the S means. I'm not sure exactly, but it's SR, so something range is my guess. And then the explanation point is like special rules or effects or something to that point. So then you have your las pistol. It has the same stats as your las gun, except right here, range, which again, they put RNG here. So I don't know, that almost leads me to believe that SR is meaning something other than just range, because they're saying range, red pentagon, which is your 6 inches. So las pistol can only shoot up to 6 inches, but your las gun can reach much further. And someone may be like, well, why would you even bother? Like, why have a las gun or las pistol? I guess your commanders or something might just be armed with a las pistol, so that would be where that comes in. And then again, we haven't seen the combat phase yet, or the close combat part yet, but there could be something to this as well. Like if you have a model, because most Space Marines have their bolt rifle and a bolt pistol, or a bolt gun and a bolt pistol. So it might be something where you can, snap fire, or, kind of like an Overwatch thing potentially. Maybe, I don't know. We haven't really seen any of how that may work, because we know that Overwatch, at least in regular 40K, is now a stratagem. You have to pay points or whatever for. All right, so at glance, you may be wondering why the las guns range, where the las guns range is marked. Due to the close quarters nature of Kill Team, weapons have unlimited range unless they're otherwise noted. Confident their las bolt or plasma blast won't run out of steam before crossing the length of a single warehouse, shooters now have time to consider their angle of attack carefully. Likewise, those on the receiving end are no longer safe at the back of the field and need to take full advantage of the terrain to maintain their safety. Now, this is another thing too that they haven't mentioned. They've been talking a lot about terrain and how that's going to affect things. But now the question is going to be, how are you going to measure who can shoot? Is it any part of the model? Is it tip of the gun? Is it from base to base? Like you have to be able to draw a straight line from base to base and there be nothing in the way. They haven't mentioned how that's going to work. I'm definitely sure there's going to be an article on terrain and cover and how all that's going to work. But they really haven't gone into that here yet. All right, at the heart of all ranged weapons, there's a few characteristics. The attack stat shows how many shots an operative can take. Rolls that equal or exceed the ballistic skill are marked as hits, and rolls of a 6 are counted as critical hits. Target must roll the number of dice equal to their defense stat. Any rolls that equal or exceed their save characteristic are marked as a save, with 6s counting as criticals. Now, this is something they don't, again, really go into or explain very well. They kind of are assuming a lot of things, or like the way this is written, it's kind of written as if they're talking to somebody that kind of already knows what you're talking about, which is kind of a little frustrating because, is this just a throwaway thing right here, this defense stat? They're just saying the defense stat is your save, or what we saw earlier which was DF, which I'm pretty sure is the number of defense dice that you can roll to try to make a save on one of your hits. So, yeah, they haven't really, again, I assume that, but they didn't say that, the target must roll the number of dice equal to their DF, which is their defense stat. Any dice equals, like that would have made sense for them to have been like, hey, because they haven't talked about what the DF is exactly. So again, I think that's what that is saying that you get to roll that many dice. So like we saw with the previous article, the guardsman had a DF of 3. So takes the hit, has to roll, I think it was a 5+, right? So you get 3 dice to try to get a 5+, unless that is a 6, which is a critical. And then you need to make a critical save. So you need at least 1 6 on 3 dice to try and block it. Or 2 5+, because that also equals, which they talk about here. Once all dice have been rolled, the attackers hit rolls, the attacker's hit rolls and the target's saves are compared. Crucially, hits can only be blocked by one critical or two standard saves. Any hits that aren't canceled are applied as damage to the target's wounds. The split number represents how much damage is inflicted on a normal hit and a critical hit, respectively. So on the last gun, we saw that it was a 2-3. So regular hits get you a 2 for damage if it's not saved, and then critical you'll get 3, which is pretty good. Which they'll also go into a little bit more on the long range las gun, so like a sniper, which is very interesting as well. So lastly, you want to take note of special rules and critical hit rules a weapon might have. These grant your range attacks a variety of handy buffs that you could spread shots across multiple targets, or change which direction cover is effective from, and more. So right here, again, we haven't really gotten more of these special rules yet. But we see here that they grant range attacks a variety of handy buffs. So you could spread shots across multiple targets. So you can do split shots. So with 4 shots, you can maybe potentially, depending on what the special rule is, you can do, I want 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. So you're hitting 4 different, or trying to hit 4 different targets, or you can do 2 and 2, or 3 and 1, or whatever combination. You can change which direction cover is effective from, which that's interesting. I don't really know what that is. If there's like some sort of like gravity effect, and you can like move cover or something. So that's an interesting one. They just like kind of just throw out there too. Just like, well, you can change which direction cover is. We're not gonna tell you exactly how exactly, but anyway. All right, so now we have a flamer. So that you get 5 attacks with that. Hits on a 2+ because it's close range, so why not? It doesn't automatically hit though, like in 40K, you just had to be in range, right? And you rolled a D6, and that's how many wounds you got. But this is, you don't have to roll to wound in this one, you're just rolling to hit. So I guess in a way it makes sense that you're just hit on a 2+. Damage either way is 2-2, so criticals are even 2. Now it's kind of interesting that they did a 2-2 here, but because you'd be like, well, they're the same, so why not just put 2 and they could put a dash here, meaning that it doesn't matter if you get a 6 on this one or not. But I guess it does in a way, because that means that they still will need a 6 or to spend 2 of their saves to block that. So I guess it does still matter to have that other option here that it's 2. So I disregard my last thing as I'm talking it out. I'm like, oh wait, that makes sense. So that's still pretty good. Then if you get some 6s in there, they're gonna have to either get two regular saves, or they're gonna have to hope for a 6 and stuff like that. So that's cool. And then they talk about here. So now you had this. I'm assuming that means range. I don't know, but we'll say range. This pentagon, so it can fire 6 inches, and then torrent is the white circle, which is 2 inches. So it says here, special rules are always in effect and often defining factors in how a weapon functions. For example, the flamer has a restricted range, but in return, its torrent ability allows it to attack all models within, I'll have to see what the asterisk is, but the white circle of the initial target. No one can escape the scorching flood of Promethium at such close range. So if you're firing at a target that's 6 inches away, and there are other models within 2 inches of it, they are also hit. They're also affected by it. So you can also roll against that as well. So again, though, it hasn't mentioned, because you have 5 attack dice. Now, do you have to split those 5 dice across the other 2 that are hitting it, or do you get additional dice to roll against those as well? It does not say. My guess is probably that will allow you to basically split fire the flamer if there are others within 2. So that you potentially, you just want to put all 5 on that one, and basically like have a sniper flamer for whatever reason. If there's like a special operative or somebody, you got to try to take them down. I'm sure that's probably going to be the case, but again, we're not 100%. but you have that option. I think that gives you the option of potentially split firing in that case. Now this is very interesting, really cool. And again, we really haven't seen very many of the specialist specific rules. So if this person here with the long last was also your sniper specialist, which again, I don't even know if there's gonna be a sniper specialist. We don't know what the specialties are going to be exactly, or a marksman or whatever it is. But they have the long last, so they're getting 4 attacks. Ballistic skill is 2+, so they're a crack shot. They're really good. And then you have again your damage 3/3, but now we have MW3, which an MW3 means mortal wounds 3, and that only comes into effect if they get a critical, which they talk about down here. So hit rules, as the name implies, are only applied to critical successes. The long las MW3, short for mortal wounds 3 rules, for instance, inflicts 3 automatic wounds for every critical hit rolled before the unfortunate target has a chance to prevent them. This rule reflects devastating effect on a spectacular sniper shot that perfectly targets a gap in the enemy armor. Now, initially there was some discussion on one of the groups, kill team groups, about you could potentially maybe still block the mortal wounds or cancel. And I was like, I feel like the mortal wounds still go through. And then if you just read this again, it says that inflicts 3 automatic wounds for every critical hit roll before you have a chance to prevent them. So no matter what, if you get a critical hit, they're taking 3 wounds before they can save it. But don't throw those dice away, because they still get a chance to save the additional 3 damage that is going to cause. So basically with a 6, you just wounded them 6 times, but they can only try to save 3 of them. 3 of them are still going through. So, I mean, right there, I mean, you could potentially really take out, like in a guardsman instance, because, most likely, like, we don't know the other stats or everything. We know the rumor that, well, we can even take an orc, for example. Like, you just got 12 wounds on the orc, of which they can only try to save 3 of them. So yeah. So, but the other thing with that is, you have 4 attacks. Depending upon how many defense dice they could throw. I mean, because I'm pretty sure, like, with the 6s, you don't have to roll a dice for each one of the damage dealt. Again, we haven't really seen how the wounds saves happen. I'm pretty sure you're just rolling against the damage, which, as I'm saying this again, I'm realizing the mistakes in my words. So you do roll just for the hits. You're not rolling against the amount of damage done. That's just after you see what has gone through. So in this case, they would only have to try to save against 2 6s if you were to hit them twice with 2 6s. They would need 2 6s or whatever their save is, and probably for an orc, it's probably 6s anyway. So in that case, they're going to be somewhat. It'll be a little bit more frustrating for orc when you're going up against orc players, as if they start spiking 6s everywhere, because they'll take away any of your critical things. But anyway, so and if they don't, then you just did potentially up to 12 damage on them, and then they've only got 2 wounds left, which is pretty nice. But there's a lot that goes into that. And again, we don't know the specialist rules, so if this person's a marksman or a sniper or whatever, what benefit could that potentially give them? So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing, like, what the specialists bring to the table as far as what their ballistic skills or extra shots or what they can do to just affect the game more. All right, so, and then obviously we have, like, this medic here too, which I'm curious how medics are going to work, because we don't see leadership or morale or anything like that. So again, that was kind of the main purpose of a medic before, was to try to, like, make sure that someone isn't shaken or anything like that. So they haven't really talked about that either. So critical, we already talked all about this. So let's go down. I think that's the end of this one. Yeah, so as you can see, weapon choices are vital in the new edition. Almost every detail on each model has an in-game effect, though some are purely cosmetic, of course. Kill Team kit comes with loads of options, so kind of the standard, it's come with a lot of stuff. So, all right, wow. So, what is your favorite part of this? Do you like this? Do you not like this? I like this for a bunch of different reasons, or a few different reasons, whatever you want to say. I like the no range on your basically your main weapons, because that just takes out that whole like trying to stretch out the thing, potentially dropping rulers and range, like just takes that out of the equation. Like they're going to be in range. You're probably just going to have to need to see if they have line of sight. So that speeds up the game there. I like that. Also, you don't need to roll to wound. Again, another aspect taken out speeds it up. So now you have your ballistic skill. You roll it. Did I hit? Yes, I hit. Okay, you roll. Did you save? Now, the thing I like about this is the comparing of dice. Now, there's different ways that people do this, and but what I like about it, I guess, is that I like the idea of like whoever's rolling, like they roll, and then their dice stays there. Like like don't touch it. Ideally, have a dice tray is my thought. Like I'm probably gonna get like there's like they make like little foldable ones that are pretty easy to transport around. I'll probably get a couple of those, one for my dice, one for my opponent's dice. So that way we have a place to roll them and they're not gonna get knocked over or like hit terrain or hit models or run into each other's dice. So you roll, then their dice stays there. Like don't touch it. There's no chance of potential cheating or manipulation of the dice. And then I roll mine. We compare them. All right, I know you got a 6, I got a 6. Take them out. Next thing. Oh, here's another 6. I don't have a 6, but I have 2 saves. So I take those 2 saves out, they take their 6 out. And you do that until you figure out, okay, this is what's left or not left, and we're good. I allocate my wounds accordingly and move forward. I like that a ton. And I brought that up in these other groups, these kill team Facebook groups and stuff. And I like that because especially it happened in kill team, happens a lot more. I feel like in 40K where you'll have that opponent that's the fast roller, right? They roll fast. They're kind of like they'll kind of roll in a spot where maybe you can't quite see all the dice or there's like a train in the way. And it's like I always have to like specify usually to an opponent and they'll still do it. I'll be like, hey, let's roll. If we're going to roll, let's roll our dice here. This is a pretty open spot. Obviously, if models and stuff get in there, we may have to shift. But generally, I'll try to like roll, in the same spot. And the other thing I like to do too is like if I roll somewhere or they roll over here, then I'm going to roll my dice over here in a visible spot because I don't want my dice hitting their dice and potentially affecting their roll or, vice versa or whatever. So I think that's where dice trays are a huge benefit in that regard. And then also, like I said, I've had opponents they'll roll quick and they pick up quick. They're the fast rollers and the fast picker ups. So like you don't really, I mean, you maybe get to see some of it or whatever, and then you just got to trust that they're telling you like because they'll be like, oh yeah, you got to make 20 saves, and you're like, well, I mean, I hope hopefully, and unfortunately, I've caught people doing it, and as I've mentioned, someone was like, is it really that prevalent? And it's like more so in competitive environments for sure. Especially and unfortunately, if it gets out like what the like event prize support is, you'll see a lot of people kind of do that, and to the point where I find I have to wait to see like either is like answering like if it's a Facebook event, like you check in saying that you're going, or you sign in to like an app like Best Coast Pairings where you can log in and say you're going and all that and register. I'll usually wait until the last, which kind of sucks sometimes if I really want to go, but then they run out of spots because I waited because I want to see who's going to be there because there are certain people that I know if I'm going to go and they're there, it's not going to be a fun time because they're going to try to cheat or like get rules amnesia, which is another thing that you can't really, but all of a sudden they have rules amnesia when it comes to something in their favor or whatever, but then they can remember every time you need to be doing something on your side of the table. So whatever. I could rant on forever about that. But yeah, there's just one person in particular at one of the gaming stores I used to go to, but I've since moved out of that area anyway. But he just would never show up. He never had any of the books like physically. They're always some like PDF, like I don't know, scanned illegal copy probably anyway. I mean, who knows? There's electronic copies out there of everything now, but he would always have them like on his phone. And then if you ever had a question, it would always take like a half hour for him to pull it up on his phone, and just wasted time, never knew the rules. Well, knew the rules enough, but then he would always have like these great rules for his stuff. And then you're like, what? Like, oh, it's a forge rule thing. And like, let me see. And then half hour would go by, and then finally you maybe see him. He'd be like, oh, whoops, no, I got that part wrong. My bad. It's like, but I mean, some of that's on the event organizers too, for allowing somebody to come without proof of this physical copy, or at least proof that they have like an official, actual, like easily, readily available copy of the rules. Yeah, there's a lot that can go around for that. But in general, I think I do like that aspect of this so far, which is, it's very similar to the Star Wars Legion in that aspect, where you have dice that, you have to get a critical hit or a critical save to cancel them out and such. And you'll still get people too, where like, again, I think where the dice tray helps keep everything kind of more centralized, because you could still get people that'll like kind of roll here, and then as they're like sliding their dice over, all of a sudden like they are able to manipulate and roll one over and be like, oh, that was a critical hit, whatever. So so I'm hoping that maybe this will help alleviate some of that. And like I said, I definitely think one of the main things that I'm going to use to try to help alleviate that is to get just some like quick, cheap, like I said, they fold up and they have like little button snaps on the corner, so you can unbutton them, and they just lay flat, and it's like kind of made of like kind of like the computer mouse pad, kind of I don't know what material that is. And then they have like I said, like little snap buttons that you can snap up in the corners, and then now it's like a little tray. I think those will work great. I should get a couple of those and use them. So, all right. Well, again, what are your thoughts? What do you like, dislike? What are you looking forward to? Do you think my assumptions and conclusions are correct or way off base? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe, and check out my Facebook and Instagram and see what I got going on there. And until next time.